The doctor's signature was still wet on the commitment papers when I realized what my son had done. I sat in the pale green room they'd given me at Riverside Manor, staring at the form in my hands. Room 217. Not a hospital room, a nursing home room. The kind with rails on the bed and a call button I'd spent 30 years answering as a nurse, never imagining I'd be the one pressing it. "It's just temporary, Mom," Brandon had said 3 weeks ago, his voice honey smooth as he wheeled me through those automatic doors. "Just until your wrist heals. You can't manage the stairs at home." I'd broken my wrist in a fall. Stupid, really. I was reaching for a box of cereal on the top shelf, lost my balance, and went down hard on the kitchen tile. Brandon and Ashley arrived within an hour of my call, all concern and capable hands. They drove me to the ER, sat through the x-rays, nodded seriously when the doctor wrapped my arm in a cast. "You're coming home with us," Ashley had said, and I'd been grateful. My daughter-in-law rarely showed me such warmth, but we didn't go to their house. We came here. "You need professional care," Brandon insisted. "We both work, Mom. We can't watch you 24/7. I should have argued. I should have said no. But the pain medication made everything soft and distant, and when Brandon put papers in front of me, I signed them. Medical consent forms, I thought. Standard procedure. I'd spent 3 decades watching patients sign similar documents. I didn't read them carefully enough. Now, 3 weeks later, I held a different set of papers. These had arrived by accident, delivered to my room instead of the administrative office. A real estate listing. My house. The 4-bedroom craftsman in the Beaumont neighborhood that my late husband Paul and I had bought 42 years ago. The house where we'd raised Brandon. The house Paul had worked 2 jobs to pay off. Listed for 675 0. My hands shook. Not from age. From rage. I picked up the room phone and dialed Brandon's number. It rang 4 times before he answered. "Hey, Mom, everything okay? Why is my house being sold?" Silence. Then, "Oh, you weren't supposed to see that yet. Brandon, what have you done?" "Mom, we talked about this. You can't live alone anymore. The fall proved that. We need to liquidate your assets to pay for proper care." "I never agreed to sell my house." "Actually, you did." His voice shifted, became businesslike. "When you signed the power of attorney forms at intake, I'm your legal guardian now, Mom. The doctor confirmed you're not competent to make financial decisions." "What doctor?" "Dr. Morrison? He cleared me. He said the fracture was minor, that I'd be fine in." "Not Dr. Morrison. Dr. Philip Crane. He's the facility psychiatrist. He evaluated you last week." I remembered. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who'd spent 15 minutes asking me questions. "What year is it? Who's the president?" Could I count backward from 100? I'd answered everything correctly, or so I thought. "Dr. Crane determined you're experiencing early-stage dementia," Brandon continued. "It's in his report. You're not capable of managing your affairs." "That's a lie." "Mom, you're getting emotional. This is exactly the kind of behavior Dr. Crane documented. Look, Ashley and I have been doing the math. Your savings are gone. You barely have $40,000 left. This place costs $8,000 a month. The house sale will give you maybe 7-8 years of care. After that, we'll look into Medicaid." "My savings are gone?" "Brandon, I had over $180,000. Had. Past tense. Mom, do you even remember what you spent it on? You've been making erratic purchases. That's another sign of cognitive decline." I couldn't breathe. "Brandon, I need you to listen to me. I am not mentally incompetent. I want to see these papers you're talking about. I want to see Dr. Crane's evaluation. I don't think that's a good idea. It'll just upset you more. Try to rest, okay? I'll visit on Sunday." He hung up. I sat there, holding the dead phone, my broken wrist throbbing despite the painkillers. 71 years old, 32 years as a registered nurse, 2 master's degrees, and my own son had convinced a doctor to declare me mentally incompetent so he could steal my house. The word echoed in my head. Steal, because that's what this was. I stood up, walked to the door, and tried the handle. Locked. From the outside. That's when I understood. I wasn't in a nursing home for temporary rehabilitation. I was in a prison. My son had put me here and stolen my freedom, my home, and my life savings. And according to the law, it was all perfectly legal. But I was a nurse. I'd spent 3 decades navigating hospital bureaucracies, dealing with insurance companies, advocating for patients who couldn't advocate for themselves. I knew how the system worked, and I knew how to beat it. I pressed the call button. A young aide named Destiny appeared, the same girl who'd been bringing me meals. "Hi, Mrs. Rodriguez. Do you need something? I'd like to speak with the social worker, please." Is something wrong? I have some questions about my care plan. I understand there's a social worker assigned to this facility? Yeah, Mr. Kimball. Marcus Kimball. I can ask him to stop by? I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Destiny. She left, and I began planning. Marcus Kimball arrived 40 minutes later. Mid-30s, carrying a tablet and wearing the kind of earnest expression that suggested he actually cared about his job. Good. I could work with that. "Mrs. Rodriguez, Destiny said you wanted to see me? Please, sit down." I gestured to the chair beside my bed. "I need help." "Of course. What can I do for you?" "I need you to help me prove I'm not mentally incompetent." His expression flickered. Surprise, then caution. "Mrs. Rodriguez? I've seen Dr. Crane's evaluation. He's very thorough. He spent 15 minutes with me, asked me basic orientation questions. I answered every single one correctly, and yet somehow he determined I have dementia. I kept my voice level, professional, nurse to colleague. "Mr. Kimball, I was an RN for 32 years, 10 of those in geriatric care. I know what dementia looks like. I don't have it." "Then why would Dr. Crane?" "Because my son is paying him to say I do." There, I'd said it. Marcus shifted in his chair. "Mrs. Rodriguez, that's a serious accusation." "I know, and I can prove it." I picked up the real estate listing from my bed. My house is being sold without my consent. My son claims I signed power of attorney forms, but I was on pain medication at the time. I thought I was signing medical consent paperwork. "You signed under the influence of medication?" "Yes. Vicodin. The hospital gave me a prescription after I broke my wrist. I was taking it every 4 hours. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. He was listening. "Mr. Kimball, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to help me prove whether or not I'm competent. Isn't there a standard assessment? A real cognitive test? The mini mental state examination?" "Yes, I want to take it. Right now, with you as witness." He studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled up something on his tablet. "Okay, Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm going to ask you some questions. Please answer as accurately as you can." For the next 20 minutes, I took the most important test of my life. He asked me to name objects, recall words, spell words backward, draw shapes, follow multi-step instructions. I answered everything perfectly. When we finished, Marcus stared at his tablet screen. "You scored 30 out of 30, he said quietly. That's a perfect score. So I'm not demented." "No. You're cognitively intact." He looked up at me. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this doesn't match Dr. Crane's evaluation at all, because Dr. Crane's evaluation is fraudulent. My son needed a doctor to sign off on incompetence so he could take control of my finances legally. Can I see Dr. Crane's report? I'd need to request it from the medical director." "Please do." "And Mr. Kimball, I need one more thing. I need to contact a lawyer. You're not allowed to have your cell phone. Facility policy for residents with cognitive," he stopped himself. "But that policy shouldn't apply to you." My son took my phone. He said it was for my own good that I kept calling people and forgetting I'd already talked to them. Marcus's expression hardened. "That's not in any of your charts. There's no documentation of inappropriate phone use." Because it never happened. He stood up. Mrs. Rodriguez, let me make some calls. In the meantime, you can use the phone in my office. Do you know a lawyer? No. But I know how to find one. Marcus brought me to his office, a cramped space filled with case files and a wilting plant on the windowsill. He gestured to the desk phone. Take all the time you need. I'm going to request your full medical file, including Dr. Crane's original notes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Mrs. Rodriguez. If what you're telling me is true, we're looking at elder abuse, financial exploitation, possibly fraud. These cases they're difficult. Your son has legal power of attorney. That's not easy to overturn. I know, but I have to try. He nodded and left me alone. I picked up the phone and dialed information. Portland, Oregon. Elder law attorneys. The operator gave me 3 names. The first didn't answer. The second said they were booked for 3 months. The third picked up on the second ring. Law offices of Patricia Chen. Miss Chen? My name is Gisella Rodriguez. I need help. My son has taken power of attorney fraudulently, and he's selling my house while keeping me locked in a nursing home. Can you help me? Silence. Then, Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm going to ask you some questions. Please answer honestly. Do you know what day it is? Tuesday, April 16th. Who's the current president? Joe Biden. Where are you right now? Riverside Manor Nursing Home, Portland, Oregon, room 217. Okay. I'm coming to see you. Don't sign anything else. Don't talk to your son without me present. Can you do that? Yes. I'll be there in 2 hours. She hung up. I sat in Marcus's office, surrounded by files of other people's problems, and felt hope for the first time in 3 weeks. Patricia Chen arrived 90 minutes later. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and a briefcase that looked like it had been through several wars. Marcus led her into his office, then tactfully left us alone. Mrs. Rodriguez, tell me everything. I did. The fall, the hospital, Brandon and Ashley's sudden attentiveness, the papers I'd signed while medicated, waking up in Riverside Manor, the discovery of the house listing, the mysterious disappearance of my savings, Dr. Crane's fraudulent dementia diagnosis. Patricia took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving fast. Do you have access to your bank statements? No. Brandon took all my paperwork when he moved me here. He said he was organizing my affairs. We can subpoena those. What about the power of attorney documents? Did you get copies? No. We'll need those too. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be difficult. Your son has POA that gives him broad legal authority over your finances and medical care. To overturn it, we need to prove either that you were coerced into signing or that you weren't mentally competent at the time of signing, which would be ironic given his current claims. I was on pain medication. That helps. We can argue diminished capacity due to pharmaceutical impairment. But we need evidence. Medical records showing what medications you were on, at what dosages. When you signed the documents, we need to prove the timing. The hospital will have records. Good. We also need to challenge Dr. Crane's dementia diagnosis. Has anyone else evaluated you? Marcus Kimball, the social worker here. He gave me a cognitive test an hour ago. I scored perfectly. Patricia's pen paused. That's excellent. We can use that. But we need more. We need to show a pattern of your son's behavior. Has he been isolating you, controlling access to your money or property before this? I thought back. He convinced me to add his name to my checking account 2 years ago. He said it would make it easier for him to help me pay bills if I ever needed it. But I never needed it. I've been managing my own finances perfectly well. Joint account holder. That's how he drained your savings. Mrs. Rodriguez. Once his name was on that account, the money was legally his too. He could withdraw it without your permission. My stomach dropped. I trusted him. I know. That's how these cases work. Patricia's expression softened slightly. But here's the thing. Financial elder abuse is illegal in Oregon, even if he had joint account access. If we can prove he took that money for his own benefit rather than your care, we can pursue charges. Do you know what he spent it on? No. We'll find out. Bank records will show where the money went. If it went to paying off his debts, buying a new car, home renovations, anything for his own benefit, that's exploitation. She flipped a page in her notepad. Now, the house. When was it listed? The paperwork said April 10th. 6 days ago. Has it sold yet? I don't know. I'll check. If it hasn't sold, we can file an emergency injunction to stop the sale. If it has sold, she grimaced, that gets complicated. But let's not borrow trouble. First step. I'm filing a petition to have the power of attorney revoked. We'll request an emergency hearing. I'll also file for a temporary restraining order preventing any further sale or transfer of your assets. How long will that take? Emergency hearing? If the judge agrees it's urgent, maybe a week, maybe 2. 2 weeks. I looked around Marcus's small office. Will I have to stay here? Possibly. But Mrs. Rodriguez, you're not a prisoner. You're here voluntarily. The door to my room locks from the outside. Her eyes narrowed. That's a problem. That's false imprisonment. Did you agree to be on a locked unit? No. Brandon told them. I was a fall risk, that I might wander. Are you a fall risk? I fell once. I broke my wrist. I'm not confused. I'm not a wanderer. I'm a 71-year-old woman who lost her balance reaching for cereal. Patricia wrote something down with particular force. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk to the facility director about moving you to an unlocked room or discharging you entirely. Then I'm filing paperwork today. We're going to fight this, Mrs. Rodriguez. But I need you to be prepared. Your son is going to fight back. He'll claim you're incompetent, that you're being manipulated, that this is all confusion and paranoia. I know. He'll bring Dr. Crane to testify. We'll need our own expert, a neuropsychologist who can evaluate you and testify that you're competent. I know someone. Dr. Sarah Lindholm. She's expensive, but she's good. I don't have money. Brandon took it all. We'll deal with that. For now, I'll work on contingency. If we win, we recover fees from your son. If we lose, she shrugged, we'll cross that bridge. Why are you helping me? Patricia looked up from her notes. Because I've seen this before, too many times. Adult children who see their aging parents as ATMs or inconvenient obstacles. The law is supposed to protect vulnerable elders, but sometimes it enables the abuse instead. Power of attorney is a useful tool when used ethically. But in the wrong hands? She shook her head. It's a weapon. And Mrs. Rodriguez, you don't seem vulnerable to me. You seem sharp as hell. So let's go get your life back. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me until we win. Now, do you have a spare key to your house hidden anywhere? Yes. Under a fake rock in the front garden bed. Left side. Good. I'm going to send an investigator to document the condition of the property. We need photos of your belongings, evidence that you were maintaining the house properly. No signs of neglect or hoarding or anything Brandon might use to claim you couldn't manage. The house is clean. I keep it clean. Perfect. One more thing. Do you have any friends? Anyone who can testify about your mental state? Anyone who's seen you regularly and can confirm you've been competent? I thought about my life. After Paul died, I'd become quieter. Brandon had encouraged that. You don't need to drive anymore, Mom. I'll take you where you need to go. You don't need to volunteer at the hospital anymore, Mom. You've done enough. Time to rest. Rest. I'd been resting myself into isolation. My neighbor? I said suddenly. Dorothy Marsh. She's lived next door for 20 years. We have coffee every Thursday. Good. I'll want to talk to her. Anyone else? My friend Susan, from church. We've been in the same Bible study for 15 years. Even better. Religious community members make excellent witnesses. They're seen as trustworthy. Patricia stood up. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm going to get to work. You sit tight. Don't talk to your son without me. If he visits, call Marcus immediately. Understand? Yes. You're going to be okay. I promise. She left, and I sat in Marcus's office for a long time, listening to the sounds of the nursing home. Call bells, medication carts, the shuffle of feet in the hallways, sounds I knew intimately from the other side. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be in my house, in my garden, living my life. Brandon had taken that from me, but I was going to take it back. The next week moved fast. Patricia filed the emergency petition on Wednesday. The judge granted a hearing for the following Tuesday, 5 days away. She also issued a temporary restraining order, freezing all my assets. The house sale stopped immediately. Brandon called that evening. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Finally, I picked up. Mom, what the hell did you do? I hired a lawyer. A lawyer? Mom, you don't have the authority to hire a lawyer. I'm your legal guardian, and I'm an adult human being with constitutional rights. I can hire whoever I want. This is insane. You're confused. That lawyer's taking advantage of you. No, Brandon. You took advantage of me. You drugged me, made me sign papers I didn't understand, paid a doctor to declare me incompetent, stole my money, and tried to sell my house. That's called elder abuse. It's illegal. Silence. Mom, I was trying to help you. If you wanted to help me, you would have asked me what I needed. You would have respected my choices. You wouldn't have locked me in a nursing home and stolen everything Paul and I worked for. Dad would have wanted you to be safe. Dad would have wanted you to be honest. See you in court, Brandon. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it felt good. For 3 weeks, I'd been powerless. Now, I had a voice again. The hearing arrived faster than I expected. Patricia brought Dr. Lindholm, who had evaluated me 2 days earlier. 2 hours of cognitive testing, memory assessments, psychological interviews. She'd been thorough and kind. Mrs. Rodriguez, she'd said at the end, I can tell you right now, you're absolutely competent. Your cognitive function is excellent for your age. There's no sign of dementia, no sign of impairment. Whoever evaluated you before was either grossly incompetent or deliberately dishonest. Those words would be important in court. Marcus helped me dress that morning. I wore a navy blue dress, pearls, low heels. I wanted to look like myself, not like a confused elderly woman, but like the registered nurse, the homeowner, the competent adult I was. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Rebecca Thornton presided, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie in the book. Brandon sat at the defense table with his lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he dealt with angry mothers regularly. Ashley sat in the gallery, her face carefully neutral. I sat beside Patricia at the plaintiff's table. All rise. We stood. Judge Thornton entered, took her seat, and looked at the paperwork. This is an emergency petition to revoke a power of attorney. Case number. She rattled off numbers. I've read the filings. This appears to be a family dispute regarding financial control and allegations of elder abuse. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia said. Yes, Your Honor, Brandon's lawyer echoed. Very well. Miss Chen, you're petitioning on behalf of Mrs. Gisella Rodriguez. Make your case. Patricia stood. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. Mrs. Rodriguez is a 71-year-old retired registered nurse who suffered a minor wrist fracture on March 20th. While under the influence of prescription pain medication, she was presented with documents by her son, Brandon Rodriguez, which he claimed were medical consent forms. In reality, they were durable power of attorney documents, giving Brandon complete control over her financial and medical decisions. Within days of obtaining this power, Brandon had his mother committed to a nursing home against her will, drained her savings account of over $140,000, and listed her house for sale without her knowledge or consent. He also arranged for a facility psychiatrist, Dr. Philip Crane, to diagnose her with dementia, a diagnosis that is completely unsupported by any legitimate testing. Judge Thornton's eyebrows rose slightly. That's quite an accusation. We have evidence, Your Honor. First, I'd like to call Mrs. Rodriguez to testify. I stood and walked to the witness stand. The bailiff had me swear on a Bible. How many times had I held that book, never imagining I'd swear on it in court? Patricia approached. Mrs. Rodriguez, can you tell the court about your professional background? I was a registered nurse for 32 years. I worked primarily in geriatric care. I hold 2 master's degrees, one in nursing administration, one in public health. So, you're familiar with dementia and cognitive decline? Very familiar. I cared for hundreds of patients with dementia over my career. Do you have dementia? No. How do you know? I know the symptoms: memory loss, confusion, difficulty with daily activities, inability to manage finances, getting lost in familiar places. I have none of those symptoms. I manage my own medications, pay my own bills, maintain my house and garden, drive, read, participate in Bible study. I'm cognitively intact. Patricia nodded. Mrs. Rodriguez, do you remember signing power of attorney documents? No. I remember signing papers at Riverside Manor when my son admitted me. He told me they were medical consent forms. I was on Vicodin at the time, taking it every 4 hours for the pain from my broken wrist. I wasn't thinking clearly. Did you want to sign over power of attorney? No. I never wanted that. Did you want to be placed in a nursing home? No. I wanted to go home. Did you want your house sold? Absolutely not. That house is everything to me. My husband and I bought it 42 years ago. He died there. Our memories are there. I intended to live there until I die. Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Brandon's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was smooth, confident. Mrs. Rodriguez, isn't it true that you fell in your home? Yes. Because you lost your balance? Yes. Isn't that a sign of declining physical stability? I was reaching for something on a high shelf. Anyone can lose their balance. But at 71, falls are particularly dangerous, aren't they? Yes. Which is why I'm more careful now. Mrs. Rodriguez, do you remember what you spent your savings on? I paused. What? Your son claims you made erratic purchases in the months before your fall. Large, unusual expenditures. Do you remember what you bought? I don't remember any unusual purchases. He smiled slightly. So you don't remember? Isn't that concerning? I don't remember because I didn't make unusual purchases. My bank statements will show routine expenses, groceries, utilities, house maintenance. We'll see. No further questions. I returned to my seat, shaking slightly. Patricia squeezed my hand. That was good. He's trying to rattle you. Don't let him. Next, Patricia called Dr. Lindholm. The neuropsychologist took the stand and explained her evaluation in detail. Mrs. Rodriguez scored in the 95th percentile for her age group on every cognitive test I administered. Her memory, problem-solving, language skills, and executive function are all excellent. There is absolutely no indication of dementia or any other cognitive impairment. Dr. Lindholm, have you reviewed Dr. Crane's evaluation? I have. What's your professional opinion of his diagnosis? It's inaccurate. Dr. Crane appears to have conducted only a brief mental status examination, asking basic orientation questions. That's not sufficient to diagnose dementia. A proper evaluation requires extensive testing, review of medical history, interviews with family members, and longitudinal assessment. Dr. Crane did none of that. Could his diagnosis have been influenced by external pressure? Brandon's lawyer objected. Speculation. Judge Thornton looked at Patricia. Miss Chen, do you have evidence of improper influence? Your Honor, we have bank records showing that Brandon Rodriguez made 3 payments of $2,000 each to Dr. Crane's private practice in the 2 weeks before the evaluation. We also have emails obtained through discovery in which Brandon explicitly asks Dr. Crane if there's any way to expedite the competency determination. The courtroom went quiet. Judge Thornton's expression hardened. Bailiff, mark those as exhibits. Mr. Rodriguez, you're going to want to explain that. Brandon's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, those payments were for legitimate consultations. We'll address that. Continue, Miss Chen. Patricia called Marcus Kimball next. He testified about giving me the cognitive test, about my perfect score, about the discrepancy between my actual mental state and what Dr. Crane had documented. Then Patricia played her final card. She called Dorothy Marsh, my neighbor. Dorothy was 83, white-haired and sharp as a tack. She walked to the stand with her cane and didn't hesitate. Mrs. Marsh, how long have you known Mrs. Rodriguez? 20 years. She moved in next door in 2005. Have you noticed any cognitive decline in Mrs. Rodriguez? Absolutely not. Gisella is sharper than I am. We have coffee every Thursday. We discuss current events, politics, books. She remembers everything. If she had dementia, I'd know. My late husband had Alzheimer's. I know what it looks like. When did you last see Mrs. Rodriguez? March 18th, 2 days before her fall. We had coffee as usual. She was planning her spring garden. She was excited about a new rose bush she'd ordered. She was fine. What happened after her fall? I didn't see her. I called her house several times. No answer. Finally, I went over and knocked on the door. No one home. I was worried. Then about a week later, Brandon showed up. He said Gisella was in a nursing home, that she couldn't live alone anymore. I asked to visit. He said she wasn't up for visitors. That seemed odd to me. Gisella loves company. Did Brandon ever mention power of attorney? Not to me. But I saw the for sale sign go up in her yard. That's when I knew something was wrong. Gisella would never sell that house. Thank you, Mrs. Marsh. Brandon's lawyer had no questions for her. What could he ask? She was a sweet old lady telling the truth. Finally, Judge Thornton called Brandon to the stand. He looked smaller than I remembered. His suit didn't fit quite right. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Mr. Rodriguez, the judge said, her voice cold. I've reviewed the bank records. Can you explain why you withdrew $148,000 from your mother's savings account over the past 3 weeks? I was moving it to a trust account for her care. Where is that trust account? Silence. Mr. Rodriguez? I was in the process of setting it up. I don't see any paperwork for a trust. What I do see is a $45,000 payment on a credit card in your name. A $30,000 deposit on a truck also in your name. And numerous other expenditures, none of which relate to your mother's care. Can you explain that? Brandon's face went red. I had debts. So you stole your mother's money to pay your debts? It wasn't stealing. I had power of attorney. Power of attorney doesn't give you the right to rob her. Judge Thornton's voice cracked like a whip. That authority is meant to be used for her benefit, not yours. Do you understand that? I was going to pay it back. When? After you sold her house and pocketed the proceeds? Brandon didn't answer. Judge Thornton looked at the bailiff. I've heard enough. She turned back to us. Here's my ruling. The power of attorney is hereby revoked, effective immediately. Mrs. Rodriguez is clearly competent and was coerced into signing those documents while under pharmaceutical impairment. Additionally, I'm finding that Mr. Rodriguez engaged in financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Mrs. Rodriguez, all your assets are restored to your sole control. Mr. Rodriguez, you are ordered to repay every cent you took, plus interest, plus your mother's legal fees, which I estimate at around $15,000 so far. You have 30 days. She wasn't done. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Elder abuse is a crime in Oregon, Mr. Rodriguez. You could be looking at prison time. And Dr. Philip Crane, she looked at Patricia. Miss Chen, please ensure the Oregon Medical Board receives a copy of this proceeding. That man needs to lose his license. Yes, Your Honor. As for Riverside Manor, I'm ordering Mrs. Rodriguez's immediate discharge. Mrs. Rodriguez, you're free to go home. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It was over. Just like that. Over. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Patricia turned to me, grinning. We won. We won, I repeated, and started crying. Brandon didn't look at me as he left the courtroom with his lawyer and Ashley. They walked past like I was invisible. Let them. I didn't need to see them ever again. Dorothy hugged me in the hallway. Marcus shook my hand. Patricia handed me paperwork. The restraining order on your assets is lifted. Your bank will restore access today. The house listing is canceled. You can go home. Home, I whispered. She drove me there herself. We pulled up to the Craftsman at 3 p.m., and I saw it like I hadn't seen it in weeks. The cherry tree blooming in the front yard, the porch swing Paul had hung 20 years ago, the blue front door I'd repainted last summer. I found the fake rock, pulled out my spare key, and unlocked the door. Everything was as I'd left it. Brandon hadn't moved anything yet. My coffee cup still sat in the sink from that morning in March, my reading glasses on the side table, Paul's photo on the mantel. I walked through every room, touching walls, reminding myself this was mine. No one could take it from me now. That night, I slept in my own bed. No call buttons, no locked doors, no fluorescent lights, just home. The next morning, I made coffee and called Patricia. I want to press charges, I said. Good. The DA will contact you. This won't be easy, Mrs. Rodriguez. Brandon is your son. He stopped being my son when he tried to erase my life for money. Fair enough. One more thing. The bank located where your money went. Brandon paid off $62,000 in gambling debts, bought a truck, took Ashley on a vacation to Hawaii, and bought a boat. All in 3 weeks. I closed my eyes. So that's what I was worth to him. You're worth a hell of a lot more than that, and he's going to pay it all back. Judge Thornton doesn't mess around. 3 months later, Brandon wired $165,000 to my account, the $148,000 he stole, plus interest and legal fees. He sold the truck and the boat to cover it. He pleaded guilty to criminal elder abuse to avoid trial and got 18 months in prison, suspended to probation with 200 hours of community service. Dr. Crane lost his medical license. Ashley filed for divorce, and I went back to my life. Coffee with Dorothy on Thursdays, Bible study on Sundays, working in my garden. People ask me if I'll ever forgive Brandon. The answer is no. Some people say that's harsh. That family is family. That forgiveness is healing. But here's what I learned. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger so it doesn't poison you. I've done that. I'm not consumed by rage anymore. But reconciliation? That requires the other person to acknowledge the harm, to show remorse, to change. Brandon has done none of those things. So no, I don't have a relationship with my son anymore. And I'm at peace with that. This story isn't about forgiveness. It's about consequences. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who see you as an obstacle instead of a human being, even if they're family, especially if they're family. I'm 71 years old. I don't have time for people who want me dead for money. I have a garden to tend.